The world, according to the French Travel Advisory Map. So this is the French government's recommendations to French citizens on where they should and shouldn't go. These maps are constantly changing on like a monthly basis, and sometimes it's just fun to compare and contrast different travel advisories from different countries. So the green countries are where the French government is recommending exercising just normal precautions. So they're saying not to worry about traveling to almost all of Europe, of course Australia, New Zealand too, then China, South Korea, and Japan. In the yellow, they're recommending exercising increased caution like Brazil, as well as for India, Indonesia, and the southern part of Africa down here. In orange, like Russia, France is advising that you reconsider travel certain parts of Latin America and actually almost all of Honduras. Finally, in red, France is saying do not travel. So like Belarus and Ukraine, for example, places like Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, lots of Pakistan, obviously North Korea. But first of all, can the French actually go to North Korea? I know us Americans can. I guess they are allowed to go there. They just need a visa first. And as of 2017, the US government announced US citizens will no longer be permitted to visit North Korea. Oh, that's expiring this year, though. Interesting. Interesting that a lot of these red countries in Africa were places colonized by France for a couple decades there. Now they're just saying, do not come here. I like that some of these places are broken down by subdivision. For instance, most of Japan is green, except for this one red dot. And I'm pretty sure that is because of the Fukushima disaster that occurred all the way back in 2011 and still having an impact. Then we have parts of the southern Philippines, one zone in Kazakhstan, weirdly, which I guess also has to do with nukes. This was a nuclear test site. And then most of the red parts here in South America are along the borders of Venezuela and Colombia. Also all of Haiti is red out. I remember reviewing a US map about this a year ago. They actually had all of Europe in yellow because of COVID. I'm fairly confident it's not like that anymore, but things are constantly changing with these travel advisory maps. Here are all the 11 countries that haven't been covered by Geography Now yet. This is gonna be like the greatest anime finale I've ever seen. I'm sure a lot of you guys are already following Geography Now since YouTube analytics are always showing me that you're watching all the videos. I've been personally watching for like literally 7 years now. He's literally been covering all the countries of the world in alphabetical order. It's obviously taken years to get to this point, and we are now down to the final 11. He's got some big episodes coming up too, like the UAE, the UK, and the United States of America, all the way to that finale, which will be Zimbabwe. That's actually going to be one of the most anticipated videos I've ever seen, just because it's been so long in the making. I cannot wait. The top 10 noisiest cities in Europe, and who would have guessed number 1 is Paris at 8.4. That scale is out of 10, so that actually seems pretty high. I wonder how much construction has to do with this. It seems like Europe is constantly under construction. Like, I do remember specifically being in Paris and things being extremely loud because there was just constantly things being built. It was actually kind of annoying. Number 2 is actually London, just behind Paris by only like 0.1%. But England actually has 3 out of the top 10 here, Birmingham and Manchester as well. Rome is in 3rd place, however. There's a big drop off with that number compared to the 8th that we just saw. I imagine the Colosseum back in the day was probably pretty loud though. Of course, Spain has Madrid and Barcelona on the list. Not too surprised about that. Then Milan, Vienna, and Berlin from Germany. What is going on in the UK for them to have 3? That's what I want to know. The criteria for this also is people per square mile, people exposed to road and traffic noise, people exposed to railway traffic, air traffic, passengers, congestion level, and then noise pollution score. I imagine everyone from these cities talking like this now. AUKUS is a trilateral security pact between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. And as you can see from this map, it kind of covers 4 corners of the globe, at least when you put it like this, when this like flat map projection. And in brown, or whatever this color is, we have the systematic competitor here. It's just China. So every star represents military facilities or just a military presence. As you can see, they are approaching China. And there's also 2 in Japan even. That light blue represents Five Eyes and Japan. Is Canada the Five Eyes and then there's Japan? Or wait, are these the Five Eyes? I don't know. The black dots are supposed to represent potential new submarine facilities. Is this why Australia is always talking about submarines? It's like their favorite thing to discuss. Biden is selling US nuclear submarines to Australia to counter China. Oh, they're out here getting a new toy. Maybe that's why. So a lot of the military presence and facilities are obviously around the systematic competitor here. Wait a second, where's New Zealand on this map? And here's the naval territories of all 3 of these nations, which I guess is why submarines are so important. The most sleep-deprived places in every US state. This is the percentage of adults who report an average of fewer than 7 hours of sleep each night. I feel like if I get less than 7 hours of sleep in one night, I literally become a zombie. Like, I actually do not feel like myself. It's horrible. So the number 1 state here happens to be Kentucky. They're probably too concerned about this. You already knew there was gonna be a stupid KFC joke there. Then number 2 is West Virginia, maybe because they're too busy working in the mines. Alabama is actually 3, and then Georgia is 4. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have a lot of these blue states, which actually shouldn't be much of a surprise, since these areas just contain a whole lot less people. It's also a lot less developed as well. There's just more nature out here. Probably easier to sleep with that. The state reporting with the best amount of sleep is actually Nebraska. Are they putting something in that corn? The other flat states next to it don't look like they're doing so good. South Dakota and Kansas. I'm insanely shocked to see that California is actually ranked 39th on this list. How is that even possible? Surprisingly, of all places, Hawaii is 5th with their population reporting they're not getting very good sleep. How is that happening? With the sounds of the waves and a constant ukulele being played? Maybe it's just like the annoying tourism all the time that keeps people up. There's actually a difference though between the state average and then the high for the county. Specifically in McCreenery, Kentucky, they are actually 49% reporting not getting 7 hours of sleep, whereas the state is as low as 42. But these are actually the highest counties, not necessarily the highest state on average. It actually puts West Virginia as a whole ahead of Kentucky at number 1. That also puts places like Maryland and Indiana way higher as well. Ohio should be like 4th place here, but they're actually coming in at 12th. Look, as you go deeper into New England, things get better and better. Vermont's way up there. The post logos, or the logos of European National Postal Services. For reference, we have this here in the US, which I believe has always been an eagle. I always thought that was an eagle. I'm pretty sure. We have the Royal Mail from the UK, and then An Post in Ireland. An Post. That seems like a strange name. There's also La Poste. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. Monaco out here just said copy and paste. Does Spain not actually have a name? It's just this icon? Well, technically it's just logo, so they have a name. They're just, yeah, we're showing the logos only. This is buff dude from Portugal. I guess technically speaking, if you're talking logos here, should there even be letters on logos? I mean, we're talking about philosophical logo design and graphic design. I don't know. There's the Dutch Post from Germany. I don't know what this says, Poland, but it definitely looks Polish. I like that Bosnia actually includes Bosnian colors. Reminds me of their flag. This looks like some sort of fascist uprising coming out of Bulgaria. Oh, the Hellenic Post from Greece looks fantastic. This one actually might be my favorite. I don't know if this is a Pokeball or the Smash Bros logo coming out of Norway. This reminds me of the Tesla logo in Iceland. I love how everyone here is using either blue, yellow, or sometimes red, and then Hungary went with just like the most disgusting green imaginable. They're always out here trying to be different. Lithuania has made a map of magnets in which each magnet can only be found in a specific area. This is to boost tourism, specifically local tourism in the country. That's a pretty genius idea, and they've definitely broken down this country into a very small amount of regions. I love that it's not just like 5 places. Like, that would have been lame. It truly gives you the feeling of wanting to collect them all. Another Pokemon reference. Where do you find the minions in Lithuania, though? Is that who they're working for next? The most evil man in the world is currently in Lithuania as of 2023. I really love that they do this. I kind of wish more countries would do this. This is such a simple idea to have everyone travel to every province or a state in your country, and then just to make a fun game out of it too. Now I literally want to go collect it. Like, there's a part of me that wants to do this right now. This North American map in 1715 randomly decided to add a little lake over here, and it's actually not so little, it's actually massive. Now obviously this part of the world was still kind of yet to be discovered at this time. I don't think it's fair to say they just like randomly added a lake over there. They just thought there would be a lake over there. They didn't really know about New Zealand or a lot of Australia either during this century. There was probably reports from like one dude that visited it, like, oh yeah, there's kind of a lake thing, and it just got like drastically overstated. Someone's like, oh yeah, there's kind of this Gulf or something that's going on, and then that statement just got overly hyped up. Obviously in 1715, the 13 colonies was still a British colony. Then we still had Spain and all of Mexico, even in Florida and Cuba, and then the British in Canada as well. Something tells me that this really wouldn't have changed a whole lot of things in our history. I mean, there was kind of a race between British Canada and the US to get out over here. This really would have just made Canada even more empty. It would obviously make an impact, but I'm just saying overall, would this have changed anything? I don't know. I vote to make this a reality. So we saw the French version of this map. Now here's the US travel advisory. So it's still on the same scale. Here's the US, and in green, they're saying exercise normal precautions. The government isn't saying you cannot go here. They're just saying, you know, with any type of traveling, you got to be careful. So I made a reference that Europe was mostly yellow a year ago. Now it seems like a lot of Western Europe is still yellow, weirdly, except for places like in the Balkans, Poland, Switzerland, Austria. They are in agreement with France that you probably shouldn't go to Belarus, Ukraine, or Russia. Actually, you know what? France weirdly said you can go to Russia. The US does not care about Fukushima in Japan, I guess, though. They also have China under reconsider travel here. They've completely blocked out Myanmar, saying do not travel. Same zone in the Philippines has some problems, except there's not as much red. Interesting that there's a large part of Africa that's actually green. That was not the same as France. They're in agreement that Argentina is fine in Latin America, but it gets a bit more complicated here. Also, Mexico has more green from the US than the French did. So obviously along the Yucatan Peninsula, they're saying that's safe. This makes me wish that the French version of this map broke down the US in terms of like different provinces and states. Because to label all of my country green, I don't know about that. Definitely some sketchy places out there. I love that Antarctica is in yellow. Exercise, increased caution. All right, I'm gonna just say that the US travel advisory map makes no sense, or it's just really weird. Technically speaking, if you're just going to Antarctica, shouldn't it be red? Like if you don't have a guaranteed spot in one of the bunkers out there, you probably ain't gonna make it. Average temperature in the interior is negative 71 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this continent is probably more dangerous than North Korea. The US map is just making me laugh, honestly. Like you good going to French Guyana, just don't go to French mainland. We can't even imagine what they're doing over there. Here's a shaded relief map of South Asia. And if you're wondering why India has just recently become the most populated place on Earth, this will tell you exactly why. Pretty much beautiful green throughout the entire country, although this is exactly where India gets most of its population. A bit more hilly down here, but this also holds a lot of their population as well. And then of course we have the giant wall that is the Himalayas, as well as the Tibetan Plateau. This shows you exactly why China and India are just completely two different places. Although they border each other directly, they are just like nothing alike. Which actually has always bothered me in like map video games where you can invade the country of India from China. You know how hard that would actually be? There's also another physical wall separating India from Southeast Asia, like Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. It's also insane to see the vegetation difference between India and places like Afghanistan and Iran. And then look at the flat wasteland that is the Arabian Peninsula. That is why Saudi Arabia only has 40 million people living in it. It's actually not even that high. This map also perfectly displays that cradle of civilization here in Iraq, home to so many ancient civilizations throughout history. Countries with the highest rates of anxiety. So this is the percentage of people in these places that are reporting high amounts of anxiety level. We have Portugal, very dark red, and they are actually #1 here with almost 9% of people reporting this. Interestingly, New Zealand is #2. I always thought these islands would be a pretty calm place. Brazil is in 3rd place, however, and then Iran is in 4th. Interesting that the UK is broken down into kingdoms, so Ireland is 5th on the chart, but also Northern Ireland is pretty high as well, at least comparatively to Scotland, Wales, and England. So what is going on in Portugal, Ireland, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Norway? More money, more problems? Some of the places reported with some of the least amount of anxiety are the Stan countries in Central Asia, as well as Mongolia and Vietnam. They're all hovering around 2%. I really wish I knew the question or questions that were being asked here. Like, is it just, do you have anxiety? I'm pretty sure it's not that easy, because like these percentages are kind of low. Everyone has anxiety from time to time, right? Or is that just me? I feel like there has to be some sort of cultural element to this as well. India, China, Russia, South Korea, Japan, very low. Meanwhile, most of the Western Hemisphere is pretty high, except for Mexico. So these parts of Africa very low as well. There does seem to be like regional clusters here. And big thanks to my patrons. Drew, I forgot to kidnap you. Next date is March 19th, 2023 at 6:30
Boy, do I
PM.
love Arby's.
Drew's Eritrean grandma.
Portugal is not
Drew's
Balkans.
Argentinian
$20
grandpa.
is a lot, Drew.
aPhatNarwhal.
Bryton is the
Caleb,
best. The
H.
Mexicans
Ruffin
have good old
760.
Rye.
Jack Traven's annoying
John
friend.
Denver
Plugs
knows
and
Pork
Decimal
Girl.
567.
Fresh
Quinn
Quinn
Taylor.
Taylor.
Rye the
The
Weekend.
Wash of the
The
Way.
Great
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth. Twickenhamster.
Carmel Saida and ZaneyBoi.